Good evening, all. I hope you are able to see the screen and my voice is audible. Can you please confirm me that?
Yes, Kastro.
Yes, perfect. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you for joining batch 8 demo session 1, which is on GitHub Actions, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, and Terraform. So as you might have already joined the previous demo sessions, maybe some of you might have joined the previous 2 demo sessions, which happened a couple of weeks back, where I have announced batch 8 with only GitHub Actions and Kubernetes. But after receiving many requests from the students or from the participants related to inclusion of Jenkins, Docker, and Terraform also in the batch 8 as well. So that is when I have re-announced batch 8 with GitHub Actions, Kubernetes, along with these 2 tools. I'll also be covering Jenkins, Docker, and Terraform. Along with these 4 major tools, these 5 major tools, we're also going to cover a couple of large-scale tools as well, which you'll be getting to know in a while. So coming to today's session, it will be a recorded session and the complete video will be uploaded to YouTube the first 3 days, that is today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. That is on 12th, 13th, and 14th of February 2026. All these 3 sessions are completely free of cost, and they'll be uploaded to YouTube in a public mode itself. And the recorded video will also be shared with all of you in the WhatsApp group, which you have already joined. But if you haven't joined, maybe you can scan the QR code, which you are seeing it on the screen, so that you'll be able to join the WhatsApp group. However, along with the WhatsApp group, I'll also be sharing you the recorded video link in the email as well with your registered email ID, to your registered email ID. So before I proceed with what exactly we are going to discuss in this particular session, let me clarify a few things here. Batch 8 will be focused on GitHub Actions, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, and Terraform as the primary tools. So these are the most focal points in this entire batch 8. Along with these primary tools, we are also going to learn some secondary level tools. And those secondary level tools will be integrated with whatever that you are going to learn as part of this particular batch. So the agenda of this session is simple, which is discussion on syllabus, where I'll be talking about what are all the different things that I'm going to cover as part of this batch. The details of the batch, the payment details and all those things, details of batch 8. Along with that, question and answers will be taken. So whatever questions that you may have related to, please keep in mute. I achieve that one. So whatever questions that you may have related to the recorded videos, related to the lifetime accessibility of the videos, how many days the videos can be accessible. So whatever questions that you may have, every question can be asked at the end. So first 1 hour, I'll be taking time to let you know a few things. And once I clear all those things, maybe I'll take all of your questions and correspondingly the answers will be given. So this particular batch is divided into 5 different modules on a large scale. In module 1, we'll be starting with Jenkins. Module 2 will be focused on Docker. Module 3 will be focused on Kubernetes. Module 4 will be on GitHub Actions. Module 5, which will be on Terraform. But here, Terraform pre-recorded sessions will be given. That is the last batch which I have taken or which I have completed in the January 2026. So pre-recorded videos will be given. So the reason why the Terraform will be given as a pre-recorded videos is Terraform has no connection with any of these tools. It is completely an the infrastructural implementation tool. So that is the reason why I'm giving a Terraform pre-recorded videos. So those who are registering for this batch, each and every one of you, the moment you register, or the moment you pay the fee, Terraform videos will also be shared with all of you. And coming to the doubts, suppose what if we have doubts in Terraform sessions? So I'll let you know that also in a while. So these are the 5 major modules that we are going to cover. Along with these 5 major modules, we are also going to have one module which is on projects, where we are going to integrate Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, and GitHub Actions to perform the CI/CD activity of deployment of applications. So these are the 6 major modules that I am going to cover as part of this batch. Coming to the syllabus of each module, I have prepared a detailed syllabus on each module. This PDF document also will be shared with all of you in the WhatsApp group. Once you register for the training, this will also be mailed to all of your email IDs as well. So those who are going to register for this particular training by paying the fee, each and every one of you will be getting the complete detailed curriculum, which you will be seeing it here. So this is a common curriculum for all the batches, which I have been taking for the past 1 year or 1.5 years. So this curriculum will be getting updated over a period of time based upon the new skills, based upon the new tools that are coming into the market. So for this batch, I have updated the curriculum, and that is what you're going to see it here. So these are the few things that you're going to see. So that is Jenkins concepts, Docker, Kubernetes, GitHub Actions, Terraform, and what are all the different tools that we are going to cover, and how many capstone projects and what are such projects that we are going to cover by the end of this batch. So these things I'll be showing it now. So coming to the module 1, which is on Jenkins, where we start understanding the CI/CD activity. Please keep yourself in the mute. Don't unmute yourself. Just give me a second. Please mute yourself. Kindly don't unmute. That helps me and others as well. Right. So we'll be understanding what is meant by continuous integration, what is meant by continuous delivery, how is it different from continuous deployment, and how the market, how in the industries, this CI/CD will be implemented, and how it is going to work in the real-time scenarios. And once we discuss that basic understanding of CI/CD, then we are going to work with Jenkins as a CI/CD tool, where we are going to understand the complete architecture of Jenkins and how Jenkins is different from other CI tools that are available in the market, such as GitHub Actions, GitLab, AWS Code Pipeline, Azure Pipelines. Like this, we have different things. So we'll be having a comparative discussion between all the CI tools that we have. And then we will see how to set up Jenkins, how to install Jenkins on Amazon Linux 2023 AMI and Ubuntu, the latest AMI, that is 24.04 AMI. How can you install Jenkins using Docker? What are the best practices of installing? How will you ensure the high availability of your Jenkins server? All these things we'll be discussing at a basic level. Followed by, we'll be understanding the different types of jobs in Jenkins, such as freestyle job, pipeline project, and multi-branch pipeline concept. Where in freestyle project, we are going to explore all of these options, which is at a level 1. Here we have 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. In level 1, we'll be understanding how to create a job, how to configure a job, how to build a job. Once the job is built, how to see the console output, how to troubleshoot if the error comes, how can you trigger a job, what are the different ways of building a job, how do we configure a public repository, private repository using personal access tokens. All of these things will be discussed at level 1. Whereas in
Kiran,
level 2, sorry?
You're not sharing your screen, I think.
Is it not visible for everyone? Can you please confirm?
No, it is getting shared.
Yeah, maybe you can check it. Yeah, maybe you can check it from your end, probably.
Sure,
Right. Can you
thanks.
please confirm now? Are you able to see? I'm currently on 4th page. Can you please confirm that?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see.
Right. Right. Thank you. Right. In level 2, we are going to understand the freestyle jobs where we are going to deep dive the concepts, particularly related to how can we store the artifacts in S3 bucket? How can we store artifacts in Nexus? How can we retrieve the artifacts? How can we download artifacts into the local system, that is into your local laptop, or even to the EC2 instance? How do we build the jobs by using a parameters concept, that is parameterized jobs, where we will see what is meant by string parameter, what is a choice parameter, Boolean parameter. Like these, we have 6-7 parameters out there where we are going to focus on string choice and Boolean parameters on a large scale. And then we'll be talking about one of the most important thing, which is about how can we take the backup of Jenkins server? How can we take the backup of Jenkins jobs and its configurations, the plugins backup, daily backup, weekly backup, based upon the requirement, how do we take the backups? And once we take the backup, how are we going to store that information and where are we going to store that information? So those entire things will be discussed as part of Jenkins disaster recovery, that is a backup and restore concept. And then we'll be talking about what are the plugins that we need for a particular projects. Let's say if I'm doing a Java-based projects, what plugins we need. If you are doing Python-based projects, what kind of plugins do we need? Node.js projects, what kind of plugins we need? Like this, based upon the application source code language, we are going to see what kind of plugins we need and how do we install plugins, how do we configure the tools, credentials, the tokens such as personal access token from GitHub, SonarQube token, Docker Hub token. All these things we'll be looking after it. And once we are clear with the concept of freestyle projects, then we are going to jump into one of the most important things in Jenkins, which is a pipelines concept, where we are going to understand what is meant by pipeline as a code concept. How do we write the pipelines? What are the different methods of writing the pipelines, which is preferred in the real-time scenarios? How do we create pipelines and store it in a Jenkins file? Where will we store this Jenkins file? If we are storing it in the GitHub repository, in which location do we need to store? What is the best practice of securing a Jenkins file? Those aspects will be discussed at a primary level. Once that is done, then we are going to deep dive into the pipeline concept, where we are going to understand the different internal factors of declarative pipelines, wherein we'll also understand what is meant by multi-stage pipelines, what is meant by multi-branch pipelines, what are parallel pipelines, when do we use each one of these, under what situations, and how can we ensure security to your Jenkins server, that is by a concept called RBAC, role-based access control. How do we create users to access Jenkins UI? How do we give the permissions? How to set up the permissions at the admin level, Jenkins admin level? Those things we'll be looking in the Jenkins security concept. Followed by, we'll be understanding what is meant by master and worker node concept in Jenkins. How do we set up this master and worker node? In the process of setting up the worker nodes, how do we ensure the safety of the worker nodes? How do we ensure the security of the master node? What are labels in master and slave architecture or master and worker architecture? All these things we'll be looking after. And as a final close for Jenkins topics, we'll be discussing about some additional concepts as well, such as how to run the file on VM using Jenkins. What is meant by throttle bills concept? How will you change the port number of Jenkins? How do we recover the Jenkins password, which is the most important thing? Suppose, let's say if I forget the Jenkins password, how am I going to recover it? What are the different ways of recovering in a safe way and secure way? Like this, we are going to cover some additional miscellaneous topic as well. And by the end of Jenkins, you are going to do five different projects. One is on freestyle project, and 4 projects we'll be doing it on pipeline concept. And one of the most important project which we are going to do is how will we maintain a separate CI pipeline and how do we maintain a separate CD pipeline? And once I trigger the CI pipeline, how can I automatically trigger the CD pipeline? So we'll be having separate pipelines for CI, which is to build, and separate pipeline for CD, which is to deploy. How are we going to integrate these two? That's also something which is popularly used in the real-time scenarios. So these are the complete things that we are going to discuss in module 1, which is Jenkins. And the most important thing is each and every tool that we are going to discuss, it is not a theory classes. Theory classes will be obviously there, but each and every session, maybe 1 or 2 sessions in the entire module might have a theory sessions, but 98% of all the sessions, whatever that we are going to have throughout this batch 8, will be having the practicals. There is no doubt in that we'll be having practicals in that. So we are going to implement it in the live session as well. And each tool will have its own set of assignments as well, where you are going to implement based upon the situation that I am going to give it. And at the end of each and every tool, you will be receiving the interview questions as well, the popular or the commonly asked interview questions, in which areas you need to focus as far as interview point is concerned. Let's say, for example, if you are a fresher, what kind of questions you can expect? If you are 3 years experience guy, how are you going to expect? If you are 5 years experience candidate, how are you going to expose to the questions? These things will be clearly given to you in a separate documents where I have collected from different sources and I have compiled them and made it as a proper structured way. The complete interview questions will also be given at the end of each and every tool. That is also something which is which you need to keep an idea about. So this is how we'll close Jenkins. Once this is done, the next module, which is on Docker, where we are going to understand how are we going to containerize the applications. So in order to containerize, what do we need? Why only Docker? Apart from Docker, do we have any container tools such as Podman, CRIO? Like this, we have different tools. So how is Docker different from all these tools, and what are the limitations of the rest of the tools compared with Docker? That's something which we are going to understand at a basic level. Once we are clear with that, then we are going to understand what is meant by an image in Docker, what is meant by a container, what are layers in the images, what is meant by a registry and a repository in Docker Hub, what is the life cycle of container from the birth to the death, how is it going to behave, how do you troubleshoot the failure situations. That's something which we are going to understand at a core level of concepts. Followed by, we'll be understanding the complete architecture of Docker after installing it on both Amazon Linux instance as well as Ubuntu-based instances. Followed by that, we are going to understand some basic Docker commands. And the most important aspect is Docker file. How do we write a Docker file? What are the different Docker file instructions, which are also called as DSL keywords, domain specific language keywords. We'll be looking into, there are 12 to 13 DSL keywords are there. We'll be looking into each and every one of the tools practically as well as theoretically as well. And once we are good with Docker file, then we are going to write our own Docker files for custom applications. So we'll write the Docker file for HTML application, Python applications, Java applications. Again, in Java, we are going to write it for normal Java applications and Spring Boot applications as well. And we'll also be writing the Docker file for Node.js applications as well. Okay, so that's something how we are going to write a Docker file on our own for the code which is developed by the developers. Proper real-time way we are going to learn. That is, once developers gives you the source code of the application, what are the important elements that you have to look in the source code, and how do you write a Docker file accordingly? And once you have the Docker file, how do we build the images using the Docker file? using the Docker file. That's something which we are going to learn. Followed by that, how are we going to optimize the size of the Docker images? That is by using multi-stage Docker builds. What is meant by an alpine image, slim image? Like this, we have different types of base images. So those things will be focusing here, where we'll be particularly focused on optimization of image sizes, Docker image sizes. And then one of the most important and commonly confused concept in Docker is the difference between the entry point instruction and the CMD instruction. So what are the common mistakes that we popularly do, and how do we work with that? That's something which we are going to do. Followed by that, we are going to practically see how do we reduce the image size, particularly from 1 GB to almost less than 100 MB size. And how do we convert a legacy Docker file to a multi-stage Docker file? That is by optimizing the size. How can we optimize that? That's by converting a legacy Docker file to the multi-stage Docker file. And then we'll be talking about how can we store the data in the containers. That is by using a concept called volumes in Docker. What is a Docker volume? How do we create volume? What are the limitations of volumes? How can we share the volumes between different containers? What happens when you share the volumes? How do we persist the data in the containers? How to attach an EBS volume to the Docker container, which is the most important thing again, if your application is deployed on the Docker instead of Kubernetes. So that's something which we are going to see. Along with that, we are going to see how to back up the volumes as well. Let's say if I have some data in the volumes, if I delete the Docker container, the data in the volume should be available. It should not get deleted. So that's something backup and restore aspect of Docker volumes. Followed by that, we'll be talking about the networking aspect of Docker, where we are going to look into different types of networks, which network is used under what conditions, and practical scenarios we'll be understanding with the networks and without networks. And then we'll be talking about one of the most important things in Docker, which is a Docker Compose. So how do we automate the process of image creation and container creation? That's by using Docker Compose, particularly for microservice-based applications. And how do we write this YAML file for Docker Compose? What are the different conditions that we are going to use? How do we store the images in the Docker Hub? How do we push the images? How do we pull the images? How do we store the images in the public repository, private repository? How to configure the personal access token? These aspects we are going to look into. Followed by that, we'll be looking into the concept of load balancing in Docker. How can we use Nginx as a load balancer between different Docker containers, which most of us might not have an idea at a larger scale. So that's something which is equally important also. If I have multiple Docker containers, how can I effectively balance the load, or that is traffic that is coming to the containers? That we will achieve it using a load balancing concept. And then we'll be talking about some aspect of the monitoring aspect of containers. That is, how can we maintain the resource utilization, CPU and memory limits? How can we set that? How can we check the health checks of the containers? And then we'll be talking about Docker Swarm. But here in Docker Swarm, we are not going to do any project, because that's something which is almost legacy one and outdated one. So we are not going to see Docker Swarm at a larger scale. We'll see mostly theoretically the Docker Swarm. And then we'll talk about port trainer, Docker port trainer, which is the UI for Docker. And then we'll look into .docker ignore file. Just like how we have git ignore file, we'll be looking into Docker ignore file as well. And these are the different projects that you are going to do it. I mean, we are going to do it by the end of complete Docker. So different types of applications we are going to deploy. As I said, HTML application, Python application, normal Java application, Spring Boot application, two-tier application, microservice application, three-tier application using Docker Compose, three-tier application using Docker Compose and Jenkins. And how are we going to integrate Jenkins with Docker? That's one final project which we are going to see. So this is completely about Docker. And then comes the most important tool, which is Kubernetes, that is module 3, where we'll start understanding what is meant by container orchestration, how Kubernetes is different from Docker Swarm, why do we prefer Kubernetes in the real-time scenarios instead of going with Docker Swarm. That we'll understand, followed by we'll be understanding the core components of Kubernetes, that is cluster, node, pod, containers, control plane, worker nodes, the architecture of the Kubernetes, that is architectural components such as API server, etcd, scheduler. Like this, we'll be looking into the Kubernetes architectural concept at a larger scale. Followed by that, we'll be looking into the Kubernetes workflow, how the deployments happens in the Kubernetes, how each and every component that is available in the control plane and the worker nodes will interact with each other when we are deploying the applications in the Kubernetes cluster. And how do we deploy the applications in the Kubernetes cluster? How do we create the Kubernetes workloads, Kubernetes resources? That is by declarative way as well as imperative way. Both approaches we are going to practically see. And we'll be setting up the Kubernetes cluster. And the most important thing is whatever sessions that we are going to do in Kubernetes, everything will be performing on EKS cluster only, which is Elastic Kubernetes service that is on AWS cloud. We are not going to work with the self-managed clusters, that is Kubedium, Cube, Minikube. These things we are not going to touch because that's not production level way of deploying the application. So we'll be looking into EKS cluster setup. Once you have an idea about EKS cluster setup, same commands, same functionality will be there in any other cloud specific clusters. So that is GKE, AKS, anything also, other clusters also you can use. But Kubedium cluster or Minikube cluster, I'll be showing you how to set up that cluster, but logically we are not going to work with that cluster. That's something which is not production level way of learning the things. And then the very first concept that we are going to learn in Kubernetes is pods. What is a pod? What are the different types of pods we have? How do we create the pods? And how the networking communication happens in the pod, that is pod networking. And how do we write the manifest file to create the pods? How do we create it imperatively? How do we create them declaratively? Those things will be understanding. And then we'll be talking about the networking concept of Kubernetes, that is a flat network model, how the pods communicate, if they are on same node, if they are on different node, how the pods communicate. In the process of communicating, we'll understand what is meant by a Kubernetes service, and we'll look into different types of Kubernetes services, such as cluster IP, node port, load balancer, external name, headless service. Like this, we are going to look into all of the services that are available in Kubernetes, which are used to expose our application to the outside world. And then we'll be talking about a concept of namespaces in Kubernetes. What is a namespace? How do we isolate the resources using the concept of namespace? How do we secure a namespace? And in the process of securing, how do we create different teams in the namespace for a namespace? How do we give access to that namespaces? That we'll be looking into that factor. And then we'll be looking into the high availability and self-healing nature of Kubernetes pods, that is by understanding controllers in Kubernetes, where we are going to look into two major types of controllers. One is a replication controller and the second one is replica set. And we'll talk about the limitations of both the replication controller as well as replica set. And how do we overcome those limitations with the concept of deployments in Kubernetes, where we are going to understand different deployment strategies, such as rolling updates, recreate, blue-green deployment, canary deployment. How do we scale the pods? How do we update the images? How can we perform the rolling update, rollback, namespace level deployments? These factors we are going to see. And then we'll look into a concept of config maps and secrets. How do we securely store the credentials? How do we encode it? What is the difference between encoding and encryption? And how do we inject those configurations and secrets into the pods, technically to the containers. How do we safely secure our credentials, particularly database credentials? Those things we'll be looking into config maps and secrets. And then we'll be looking into the storage aspect of Kubernetes, which is by understanding the volumes concept, where we'll see what is meant by persistent volume claim. How do we provision those volumes? That is static provisioning, dynamic provisioning. And in the process of dynamic provisioning of the volumes, we'll see what is a storage class. In storage class, what are access modes, reclaim policies? How do we set up the volumes using a EBS driver as well as EFS driver? What makes the difference between EBS drivers and EFS drivers? And we will also particularly verify the persistence of data once you delete the pod. And once that is done, then we are going to look into resource quotas and limits concept, where we are going to set up the resource quota for a particular namespace. Let's say in a namespace, I can create only 10 pods. For a namespace, I can give only 5 GB of storage, 2 CPUs. So how can we set up that? That we are going to understand, along with some failure scenarios, such as out of memory kill, crash loop backup. Like this, we have different scenarios. So we'll look into those scenarios as well. And then we'll talk about the probes in Kubernetes: liveness probe, readiness probe, and startup probe. However, startup probe is not so popular now. It's all about liveness and readiness probes. That's something which we are going to focus as well. And then auto scaling in Kubernetes, which is the most important factor, where we'll be talking about horizontal pod autoscaler, vertical pod autoscaler, cluster autoscaler as well. And how, in the process of autoscaling, how can we use a metrics server, which is an add-on tool in Kubernetes. And then we'll be talking about the deployment strategies in Kubernetes, that is node selector, node affinity, pod anti-affinity, taints and tolerations. Those scheduling concepts also we'll be looking at. And then the stateful set concept, which is particularly for the databases. How do we maintain a stateful set pods? And what is a headless service in the process of working a stateful set? How can we integrate a stateful set applications with the front end of the application? And how will we integrate stateful set with config maps and secrets? That's again something which is important to see. That also we'll be looking into it. And then we'll talk about the scheduling of jobs, particularly cron jobs concept. We'll be looking into it. And then one of the most important concept of deploying a microservice-based application, which is ingress controllers, where we are going to look into Nginx ingress controller and AWS load balancer controller. And once we discuss these things, then we are going to understand how can we work with the gateway API and how is it different from ingress controllers. And in the process of working with gateway API, we are also going to see the migration concept from either from Nginx ingress controller or AWS load balancer controller to gateway API. That migration concept also we are going to see. This is the latest one, which is moving around in the market, because in the very recent news, ingress controller, ingress Nginx controller was deprecated. So that's why most of the companies has to shift towards gateway API. So that's why we are going to see the migration concept also. And then we'll look into the security aspect of Kubernetes, that is particularly by using a concept called RBACs. RBAC in Kubernetes. And in that process, we'll be talking about IRSA, that is service accounts, IAM roles for service account, OpenID Connect, OIDC, that also we are going to see. And then followed by, we'll be looking into the security aspect of pods, that is particularly by looking into the network policies. What are the different types of networks policies that we have? How do we set up a network? How do we install a network such as Calico, Flannel? Like this, we have different networking policies. So we'll look into that aspect as well. And then some troubleshooting scenarios during that process. Helm charts. How do we custom create a Helm chart for our own application? How do we store those Helm charts? How do we pull the Helm charts and deploy the applications? And then the GitOps way of deploying the applications, particularly by using Argo CD. And if any concepts that might spin up when we are talking about Kubernetes, additional concepts also will be discussed. And by the end of Kubernetes, we are going to do two projects. One is deployment of microservice-based application and deployment of a normal application using Jenkins and Argo CD as a CI/CD tools. Okay, so these are the complete things that we are going to focus on Kubernetes. It's a very lengthy thing, but obviously it will be more lengthy when we are discussing. Almost 25 to 27 days we are going to spend on Kubernetes alone. Once Kubernetes is done, then we are going to look into the another module, which is on GitHub Actions. So where we will see GitHub Actions as a CI tool and how do we integrate GitHub Actions with the deployment activity, that is CD activity. So we'll understand the basic differences between what are the different CI tools that we have, such as Jenkins, Circle CI, GitLab, GitHub Actions, how GitHub Actions is different from all of these things. That's something which we are going to learn. And then we'll talk about how do we create the workflows in GitHub Actions. In the process of creating the workflows, what are the different configurations that we need to do, architectural level configurations, and how do we deploy the applications. In the process of deploying the applications, we'll be talking about the concept of runners in GitHub Actions, that is self-hosted runner and hosted runner, GitHub hosted runner. That's something which we are going to see. And on both concepts, that is on self-hosted as well as GitHub hosted runners, will be practically deploying the applications, both in the form of Docker containers and also in the form of Kubernetes cluster. Along with that, we'll be talking about the workflow basics and how do we trigger the workflows, what are the different conditions, how do we filter the events, the jobs concept in GitHub Actions, what are marketplace actions and composite actions, how is it different from each other, how do we write a custom actions, and how do we securely store the secrets in the GitHub, that is repository level secrets, environmental secrets, organization level secrets. Those things also we are going to look. Followed by, we'll look into how to deploy the applications into different environments. How do we set up the permissions to deploy the applications into different environments? How do we protect those environments? These things we'll be looking into it. Followed by, we'll be deploying the applications with Docker container using GitHub Actions as a CI tool, CI as well as CD tool also. And then we'll work into self-hosted runner, where we'll deploy our applications. And we'll look into reusable workflows. And finally, we'll close GitHub Actions with three different projects. One is CI pipeline with GitHub Actions with the Docker deployment, GitHub Actions with Kubernetes deployment, and one self-hosted deployment also will do it. And in this process, we are also going to see how do we set up blue-green deployment using the GitHub Actions. How do we route the traffic to blue version of the application and also the green version of the application. So this is how we'll close the GitHub Actions. And then the last module, which is the Terraform. As I said, Terraform will be a pre-recorded sessions, complete recorded videos, which are having almost 10 plus hours of content is there. 7 days or 8 days I have discussed the Terraform for the last batch. So that I have almost updated everything in that previous batch. So that Terraform videos will be given. And this is the complete Terraform concepts, which I have covered in the previous batch, which I'll be giving it as a recorded videos. So these are all the things that you are going to get from Terraform. So maybe you can go through them when you are watching the recorded videos. Right. And the last module, which is additional tools that I'm going to cover, where we'll be seeing a Maven, Tomcat, Nginx as a web server, Nexus as an artifact repository, SonarQube as a code quality analysis, Prometheus and Grafana as a monitoring tools, EFK Stack as an application server monitoring tool, application log monitoring tool, PagerDuty as the alerting tool, Privy OWASP as the security tools, even Docker Scout also will be seeing, and Istio as a service mesh tool. Along with these tools, I'm also planning to include some of the additional tools such as Elasticsearch also I'm planning to, OpenSearch also I'm planning to include, but I cannot tell particularly at this point. It depends on the time frame and all that part. But however, I'll try to include that OpenSearch tool also And if possible, I'll try to include any other tools that might get ready by that point. And the last module, which is on capstone projects, where we are going to do 4 capstone projects, complete live and end-to-end projects, where we are going to deploy a Java and Python application using Jenkins and Kubernetes, and deployment of microservice applications using Jenkins and Argo CD, particularly in Kubernetes again. So 2 projects we are going to do it on Jenkins as a CI/CD tool, and 2 projects we are going to do it on GitHub Actions as a CI/CD tool, so that you will get a complete flow about how do we perform the CI/CD using Jenkins and how do we do the same thing with the GitHub Actions. So this is the complete course content that we are going to see in this batch 8 along with the capstone projects. So a total of almost 15 medium scale projects, that is tool based projects you are going to get. Along with that 4 end-to-end capstone projects you are going to see. Along with all these projects, there are already some projects that almost 8 or 9 projects are there on my YouTube channel. Maybe some of you might have gone through those videos as well. Those projects also will be given to you as an assignments. Along with all of these things, once we close everything, then you are also going to get one code from me, one microservice application code, which is a kind of real-time application code. And you are going to write a Docker file for that. You are going to perform the CI/CD activity using the GitHub Actions as well as Jenkins, a microservice-based application. That code also will be given to you. Complete code will be given to you. So this is the complete concept that we are going to learn as part of batch 8. Batch 8. So this is about the curriculum aspect. And coming back, let me tell you a few things before I take your questions. Okay, let me explain a few things here. I mean, let me keep you informed with few things. Coming to the accessibility of the videos and the notes. Accessibility of videos and notes. Before I write here, can you please confirm, are you able to see my notepad screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Right. So you are going to get the complete recorded videos of each and every session. Along with that, daily lecture notes also you're going to get. Along with lecture notes, you are also going to get the Docker files, the Jenkins files, Kubernetes, GitHub Actions, workflow YML files. Along with that, Kubernetes AML files, Terraform files, all of these things you are going to get completely, and you will have the lifetime access for each and every document and each and every recorded session. So once you take this course, you can access the videos at any given point of time. The accessibility will be there. So that's something which is something that I wanted to do. And the most important thing is Terraform will be provided as a recorded videos. So Terraform module will be provided as a recorded videos. That's something which you are going to get it. As soon as you register, you will be getting the Terraform session so that you can start learning Terraform at your own pace. And coming to the doubts, let's say if I have some doubts in Terraform module, so how do we clarify that? So that's where we are going to have doubt clarification sessions, clarification sessions. And these doubt clarification sessions will be there on every second and fourth Saturday. Every second and fourth Saturday, 1 hour will be there, and the timings will be informed one day before of the session. Mostly I'll try to fix the timings, but at this moment I cannot fix the timings. The timings of the doubt clarification sessions. So once I take a common point from all of you, then we are going to have it. We are going to schedule the doubt clarification sessions where whatever that is discussed in the weeks, maybe you can practice, and then we'll have the doubt sessions on every second and fourth Saturday. That's something which we are going to see. And then that's something which is doubt clarification sessions. And in this sessions itself, you can ask whatever doubts that you may have with the Terraform also, that also you can ask. Okay. That's something which we are going to see. And coming to the batch details. So batch details, the payment and all that part. But before that, let me also tell you one thing, which is mock interviews will be scheduled for each and everyone, and it will be complete one-to-one mock interviews only. There won't be any group mock interviews. Complete one-to-one mock interviews will be there, and one round will be there for each candidate. One round per candidate, and each round will have at least 30 minutes to a maximum, and not at least, at most 30 minutes will be there for each candidate. And along with that, resume guidance will be given. You can share your resumes probably at the end of the course or when you are ready to apply for the jobs. So I'll be letting you know whether this resume can be updated with any other additional things on that part. That kind of guidance also will be provided to you. That's something which is mock interviews will be held only after all the sessions gets completed. That means once we complete batch, then only we'll have 1 week of break. After 1 week of break, then we are going to schedule mock interviews. Proper timings, everything will be shared with all of you, those who are going to register. And coming to the batch details, the sessions will be session timings will be from 5 o'clock to 6:30 in the evening. 5 to 6:30 p.m. every day. That is from Monday to Friday. And every alternate Saturday, that is second and fourth Saturday, we'll be having the doubt clearance sessions. First and third Saturday, we will have the regular sessions. First and third Saturday, we'll have the regular sessions. Because that is to make sure the entire course can be completed within a stipulated duration of time. So to match that flow, not every first and third Saturday will be there, but I'll let you know when the sessions will be there. But please keep it in mind that Saturdays also will be occupied. 2 Saturdays for doubt clarification sessions, and at least 1 Saturday in a month will be going for regular sessions. And particularly in the Jenkins tool, we are not going to have any Saturday sessions. Mostly from Docker and Kubernetes, since they are lengthy concepts, we'll go with additional sessions on Saturdays as well. But that will be priorly informed to you so that you can plan your schedule also accordingly. And that's something related to session timings. And the fee details, as you have known already, which is 9,000 rupees, which is a one-time payment. If you are paying it for one time, you can pay it as 9,000 rupees. And if you want to pay at 2 installments, then the fee is 10,000 rupees, 2 installments. And these 2 installments also can be paid in this way. That is on or before 16th, that is from Monday, next Monday, coming Monday. On or before 16th, you need to pay 5,000 rupees. And the remaining 5,000 rupees you can pay on or before 2nd March. That's the remaining one. So those who wants to pay it on installment levels, this is the thing that you need to follow. But those who wants to pay as a one-time payment, you can go with the payment now itself. I mean, now in the sense like once after the session gets completed, or once you listen to all the free sessions, that is today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow, all these 3 days free sessions will be there. So once you go through the lectures and then understand it, ask your questions, and once you feel that, okay, this is the right place where I can learn the things, then upon your decision, you can continue paying the fee. So how do we pay the fee? So how to pay the fee? So to pay the fee, the Google Pay number or Phone Pay number is 97007124459, which is my number itself. So you can do it either on Google Pay or on Phone Pay as well. Okay, Phone Pay as well. Once the payment is made, share me the screenshot of the payment, along with your name, email ID, and WhatsApp number. Each and every one who is going to join batch 8 will have a dedicated WhatsApp group. Will be there. where the discussions can happen, like between among yourself. Like if you get any questions, I mean, if you have any questions or if you want to discuss anything, if you want to share any information, everything can be shared in that dedicated WhatsApp group. So each batch, whatever batches that I have been running, each batch will have a dedicated WhatsApp group for the batch information. Along with that, there will be one community group as well, where whatever batches that happened in the last year, not before that, whatever batches that happened in 2025. So in 2025, I have completed 3 batches. So batch 5, 6, 7. So that in that community group also you'll be added. Where in the community group you'll be having, I mean, I'll be sharing the placement related things. I mean, placement as in where are the opportunities available through LinkedIn sources and these things. Whatever I find it genuine, I'll try to share it in that WhatsApp group. And common information, anything that is required, all that common information will also be shared in that community group. So in the community group, all the previous batch students, along with the current batch, that is batch 8 students, will be available, where you can also talk to them as well. Okay, that will be, I mean, you will be added to the community group once you join the sessions. I mean, once you pay the fee. And that's something. And the last thing which is required to join for this entire training program is there are a couple of prerequisites to join this one. Primarily, you should have an understanding about Linux operating system, so basic Linux commands. You should also have an idea about AWS cloud, at least how to launch an EC2 instance, particularly with EC2 service, S3 service, along with EC2 and S3, IAM service, and VPC. These things, if you have an idea, that's more than sufficient. If there are any other things that are required, I'll let you know that also. But have an idea about a large scale picture about AWS cloud. And then the basic idea about the Git and GitHub, basic Git and GitHub commands, how to create a repository in the GitHub, how to create a public repository, private repository, how to push the code, how to pull the code. This basic information, if you have an idea, that's more than sufficient to join this training. And the most important and the last one for this one is, as I said, each and every session will have a practical and theory sessions. You don't have to bother, even if you have zero knowledge on any of these tools, that is GitHub Actions, Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, and Terraform. Each and every tool will be going from basics to the advanced level. That's something which I can guarantee it. Proper basics we'll understand, and then we'll slowly move towards the advanced level with each and every tool. Even if you get a doubt that I don't have a knowledge on Kubernetes, I don't know how to write a Jenkins file, I don't know how to write a Docker file, no problem. I'll be there to help you out throughout all the batch days. And the duration of this batch 8 will be 60 to 65 days will be there. So 60 to 65 days we'll have the sessions. Mostly I'll try to finish within 65 days itself, but maybe in between, if I need some break, or if we have to go with some mid-session breaks, maybe 70 days it will go, but 60 to 65 solid working days only. I'm not talking including any holidays, only working days, 60 to 65 working days we are going to cover. All the tools, whatever that we are looking after. So that is all about what I wanted to discuss in this particular session. In tomorrow's session, which is going to happen at the same timing, and in that session, we are going to start understanding one tool which is called as a Maven, which is a build tool. So that's something which we are going to focus in the next session. So that is all from my end. If you have any questions, you can keep your questions. But before I take the questions, those who haven't registered, I mean, those who haven't submitted the things using Google Form, maybe you can scan the QR code to register so that I can send you the meeting links and other information. Along with that, if you haven't joined the WhatsApp group, you can join this WhatsApp group by scanning the QR code, which you are seeing it on the screen. Yeah, I'm open to your questions if you have any.
Hi, Kiran.
Yeah, hi.
I need, for example, Jenkins and GitHub Action will be the CI/CD tool. Why we need to learn. I'm not
Sorry, why we need to?
get both things. For example, Jenkins also do the same, and
Yeah.
GitHub also do the same.
GitHub Actions also do this. That's the
Yeah, GitHub Actions also do the same. So why we
Yeah.
need both of the tool? And
Suppose, let's say, I mean, I'll keep it very simple at a plain level. Let's say if you want to work with Jenkins, you need to have an EC2 instance. In that EC2 instance, you need to install Jenkins. That means some additional cost is going to come for you. Correct? I mean, if you have an idea about Jenkins. So
Yeah.
to set up Jenkins, we need to have an EC2 instance or a virtual machine we need to have. In that virtual machine, you need to install Jenkins. And then you will set up Jenkins and you will start working with the Jenkins. That means additional cost you are going to get. The instance will be keep on running. So since the instance is keep on running, you will be getting additional cost. So to reduce the cost, I have GitHub Actions. For GitHub, to work with GitHub Actions, you don't need an EC2 instance. You can run the complete CI activity in the GitHub Actions without the need of any additional servers. That's at a plain level, the major difference between Jenkins and GitHub Actions. Cost optimization.
Okay.
One thing in GitHub Actions, you are saying that we can run any project without the servers, right?
No, it's not about running the projects. It's about running the CI pipelines, the integration. Let's say build pipelines. Deployment wise, obviously, you need to have the servers only. Without in GitHub Actions directly, we cannot do deployments.
Okay.
Yeah. For deployment level, you need to have a Kubernetes cluster, or you need to have in the form of Docker containers.
Okay.
So we are going to see a blue-green deployment, these things. Am I right?
Yes. Canary deployment, blue-green deployment, we are
Exactly.
going to see.
So without project, we going to do that, or with project? For example, with project means we can understand easily. I'm not sure which.
Projects also will be covered in the process of blue-green deployment. First, we will see it in the in the live Kubernetes, regular Kubernetes sessions. How do we implement GitHub? How do we implement blue-green deployment and canary deployment using just the YML files? The same application or a kind of different application, we'll deploy it using GitHub Actions also.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. How do we switch the traffic from blue version to green version? That we'll see it practically using GitHub Actions.
Sure.
Yeah. Hi, Kiran. So,
Hi.
we'll be covering the customized concept, since you mentioned Helm, so I'm asking, customize also will be covered.
Customize as in, I didn't get you. Custom Helm charts.
In Kubernetes. Yeah, in Kubernetes.
Yeah, custom Helm charts we are going to create.
No, I'm not talking about Helm, like a base overlay concept, right? Customization, like .yaml, that concept.
Yeah. We are going to write our own YAML files and all those things.
Okay. Also, in GitHub Actions, do we cover arc runners concept?
I'll see it, but at the moment it's not required. But if it is required, I'll let you. I'll include it.
Okay.
So one more. I have a doubt. Like the project in the sense, are we going to run the source code in the Kubernetes, or we going to create pipelines as well?
Pipeline. We are going to run in the sense that is creating the pipelines only.
Okay.
Let me tell it in a better way. Let's say a developer is. Keep it as a real-time scenario. Let's say developer will write the code. Once developers write the code, they'll give the code to the DevOps engineers. Now you have the code in the GitHub repository. How do you deploy that code to the servers? That is in the Kubernetes or that is in the Docker. That we are going to see. What DevOps engineers will do in the real time, once they get the code from developers, same way we are going to deploy. We'll have a code. I'll just show you one simple thing. Okay. Let's say I have one code. Let's say assume that this is a microservice. This is actually a microservice one. So you're having some microservices which are developed by the developers. Forget about what code is there in each service. That's not our duty. That developers will take care. Once you have the code as a DevOps engineer, how do we implement that and how do we deploy that into the Kubernetes cluster? By writing the Docker file, by writing the Kubernetes manifest files, by creating the cluster, by setting up Argo CD. These things we'll be doing it from our end.
Okay, sure.
So, after completing all these sessions, right, we complete all these 5 concepts. So, each model wise, how much experience we can keep in the resume?
At least 4.5 years of experience, you can keep it. At least 4 years, you can keep it. That's for sure. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes. Hi, this is Harsha. I have a question.
Yeah. Hi.
So,
Hi.
I'm actually from a legacy background. I'm currently to mainframe modernization, but I do
Okay.
have knowledge on AWS and some of the Linux basic commands.
Okay. Okay.
So, how far will this be? I mean, do I need to? Will I be able to understand at the basic level? I just wanted to know if it would be useful for me. I'm ready to
Yeah.
put my efforts,
Yeah.
but I want to know at what level of understanding this
See,
thing will be done.
yeah, I'll let you know in this way. Let's say, I mean, you are telling that you have an idea about AWS cloud. That means you have an idea about how to launch an EC2 instance, how to connect with the
Yes.
instance, how to deploy, let's say, a simple it's Apache application, Nginx application. How do we secure our servers, that is security groups. These things, if you have an idea, that's more than sufficient for me to teach you these 5 tools.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And also the capstone projects, right? So, because you say the course is for 65 days.
Yeah.
So, are you going to give the project recording? I mean, how are we going to
Yes.
execute them and
In
the
the
talk
live, we are going to
sessions?
do. In the live sessions, we are
Like,
going to do.
okay. Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to. Thank you.
Just give me a second. I'll share the previous batch page so that you'll get an idea. Yeah. Meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, you can go.
So one project will be done in one class, or we going to split?
Yeah. No. In a single session itself, we'll do it. When during project sessions, we'll have at least 2.5 hours of sessions will be there in a stretch.
Got it.
That
Got
I'll
it.
let you know.
Sure.
Because in 1.5 hours, obviously, projects cannot be completed. So we'll have at least 2 hours. That is for sure.
So only Terraform is a recorded session. Rest all will be live sessions, right?
Yes. And I mean, as in live sessions, as in you are going to get the recorded videos of those sessions as well. But Terraform will not be discussed as part of live classes. They will be given as a recorded videos.
Yeah, understand. I mean, recording will be there, but day-to-day live sessions will be there for the remaining things.
For the rest of the tools.
After sessions, we will get the recordings.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe you are able to see one Google sheet, I mean spreadsheet. So this is for the previous batch. So you can see the capstone project 1, which we have done for the previous batch, that is batch 7, which I have done it on 6th of January, and the capstone project 2, which is on 7th of January. So these 2 projects are on Jenkins with CIC, I mean Jenkins with Kubernetes deployments. So these projects will be given to you, and as I said earlier, based on each tool, you'll be getting a separate assignments as well. That also you can see. And this is the complete Terraform module, which I have covered. This is the complete syllabus. So I believe almost 8 sessions are there, which are spinning up to 15 hours of content. So this is the previous batch, total 90 hours we have discussed in the previous batch. That is for 55 or 56 days. You can say 56 days we have discussed.
Can you show some sample assignments? I'm excited to see assignments.
The column D, which you are seeing it, that is all assignments only.
Okay.
Any other questions before we close?
Yeah, impact of AI on these tools.
Impact of AI, at the moment, we don't have any problem as far as DevOps concepts are concerned, but roughly, probably we may get some AI tools such as agentic AIs, these kind of tools might come, and they are going to, I mean, again, they are not going to automate everything, because already we are doing the automation process. So since DevOps is all about automation, we can enhance the automation process. So obviously the impact will be there. If I say there won't be any impact, that's like a biggest lie. But how far it is going to impact at the moment, we cannot tell, because we don't have any large scale AI tools which are automating the application deployment process. We have AI tools to write the code. Suppose, let's say we have something called Bolt. We have something called Claude AI, and very recently Anthropic AI. That's something which is ruling the market at the moment as for the resources. So we have all the tools, all the AI tools which are coming up at a development level, not at an automation level. So we don't know, maybe in future, if we get any automation tools, probably we might have to work on those automation tools as well to sustain in the market. But at the moment, as far as I know, we don't have any automation, deployment of applications in an automated way using the AI as a tool. That we don't have at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have any questions, I think we can close the session. Okay then, thank you all. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow also at the same time, the session will be there, which is at 7 p.m. to 8:30. So tomorrow we'll be looking into Maven, which will be considered as a day one itself, because today we'll just discuss the syllabus part itself. So from tomorrow, actual sessions will be starting, and however, tomorrow and day after tomorrow session will be kept for public mode. Public accessibility will be there, but from 16th onwards, the fee has to be paid, and only the people who are paying the fee, you can join. The separate link will be there, and the separate WhatsApp group, everything will be given. All the instructions will be passed once you pay the fee. Right. So that's all from my end. Thank you all. Thank you once again for joining. Thank you for your time as well. Thank you all. We'll see it in the next session.